And we are back. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, everybody. First live stream of the season. First live stream of the season. We could not be happier to get it back up and running. We wanted to do this a little bit earlier, obviously. We wanted to do it before week 0, wanted to do it before the start of week 1. And then as fate would have it, I get COVID for the 4th time, believe it or not. 4th time with the COVID virus, and could not do anything. So the videos you saw last week for week 1 were all filmed in advance. While those were getting posted and uploaded, I was just like bedridden for the entire time. So we had to postpone our live streams until this week, but we are so happy to be back every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time, just like right now, just at this exact time. Mark your calendars, clear your schedules, because this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be here on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, taking your questions, taking your calls. No calls tonight. We have a lot to break down that I wanted to get to, so we're going to save our first call-in show for next week. But we're going to be taking a lot of your questions and comments in the chat, but this is what we're going to be doing. We're very, very excited for what's to come this season. What's already shaping up to be a pretty wild season, I should say, and we'll touch on some of those big points here in a second. Want to give a big shout out to our guys that are already here. My man Robert, my man Scotty B, Eddie, Brady, my man Mitch, what's going on, and Ben as well. Good to see every single one of you, whether you're watching now, watching later, watching tomorrow, doesn't matter. We're happy you're here, and we're happy that you're part of our GE Nation. So we have a lot to break down before I even jump into the chat. Hey, what's going on, Mitch? I appreciate that already. Appreciate you in that super chat, my man. He expletive the Hawks, man. Cy-Hawk trophy game. We're going to touch on that tonight. Don't worry. We're going to touch plenty on that tonight, just like we did in our week 2 prediction video that came out today. But we have so much to break down, and I want to start with week 1. Couple main talking points there. Segue into week 2, and then kind of going back and forth between what we have in the chat today. What's going on, Johnny? My man Trey, good to see you. My brother Trey, I should say. And Jerry, good to see you as well. Hope all is well, Jerry. Congratulations again. Hope you're doing good, and we're very happy to have you here for sure. All right, so let's hit on a few talking points. And before I really get going, I do want to give 2 quick shout-outs. First, obviously, to everybody here. Secondly, to our man Chris Gates. That is what is this live stream is sponsored by today. Our man Chris Gates, good friend of mine, his online fitness training camp. He's going to be sponsoring us for at least this entire month, if not longer. So we are pumped to have him on board and pumped for everything he's doing over on his site. The link for his website is down in the description below. If you go sign up using our promo code Gridiron, you get the first month of training camp for just $10, which is 80% off. He's given a massive discount with this partnership, and it's got some fantastic insight and workouts and just everything you need from a health standpoint over on his site. So go check that out. Again, the link for it down in the description below. We appreciate Chris, everything he's doing, and happy to be partnering with him for the month of September. Also, our expert picks are there as well, also in the description. If you can see across the ticker, we get to 100 expert pick signups. We're going to be doing a 24-hour live stream. That's been the goal for the last couple of years. That was the deal last year. That's the deal again this year. And I would say we're almost about 40% of the way there. So we really are chugging along as we prepare to enter week 2. But if we can get to 100, we will do a 24-hour live stream. We're going to make sure we do it on a Friday night into a Saturday, so you'll be able to watch football with us all day with our immediate reactions. That's what we want to do. So if you haven't signed up for the expert picks, or if you just want to contribute to the channel, the link for that is down in the description below over on thegridironexpert.com. Help us reach our goal. Become a member of our GE Nation. Going to be the best decision you make all season long. We can promise you that. It's one of the best picks in the country. It's one of the lowest price in the country, and we definitely recommend that you take advantage of it as soon as you can. No doubt about it. My man Trey with another big super chat donation. I appreciate you. My Rocket brother, man. Go all the way back to the good days down in Little Rock. Wish we had been in class together. I wish I'd been back when you were in school, but love that line. Love our alma mater. And looking forward to getting back down to a few games this fall. So, Trey, appreciate you. And Mitch, I appreciate you already. All right. Robert, the 24-hour live stream is if we reach 100. That's the goal. So I want to jump into the first thing. let's address the elephant in the room. And trust me, we're going to get back to everybody's questions and comments. So put them in the chat. We're going to make sure we loop back to them. So make sure you get them in there. But let's talk about what's going on down in Tallahassee. I have a lot to talk about on this, something we didn't really get to discuss after week 0 because I was sick, something that we haven't got discussed in deep detail because of all the other recaps that we've had to do. But what has happened to Florida State? That's, I think, the main topic that we need to address heading into week 2. And maybe the biggest takeaway from the entire country over the first 2 weeks of the season, with week 0 and week 1. Here's the thing. It's really easy to point fingers at Florida State and go, their problem is DJ Uiagalelei. He's terrible. So that's the issue here, right? And that's why they've lost their first 2 games. And I would say he is a part of that, no doubt about it. DJ is playing very, very bad ball. But that's not the entire issue, right? It's a much deeper issue than that. Look at the defense. First off, I honestly think you arguably can blame the defense more than you can blame DJ Uiagalelei, because this was a defensive line especially that was supposed to be one of the best in the ACC. We heard all offseason long how great Florida State's defense was going to be, how strong they were going to be, how the entire defensive line was made up of first-round draft picks, and yet they have looked like a JV high school team out there the first 2 games against Georgia Tech and Boston College. 2 games where the Seminoles were favored by double digits. They were double-digit favorites against the Yellow Jackets in Ireland. They were double-digit favorites at home against Boston College, and they got torched in both of those. Yes, I know Georgia Tech did win at the buzzer on that game-winning field goal, but they got torched at the line of scrimmage. Against Georgia Tech, Florida State allowed 190 rushing yards. 190 rushing yards allowed to the Yellow Jackets. Monday night against Boston College, they allowed 263 rushing yards to the Eagles. That's not DJ Uiagalelei's fault. That's not his fault. That's not the offense's fault. That is solely on the defense and their inability to get any push whatsoever in stopping the run. In those first 2 games, Florida State has just 3 sacks and only 8 tackles for a loss. So they're really not creating pressure. They're really not creating negative plays. They can't stop the run to save their life. That's strictly the defense. That's strictly coaching. But additionally, their offensive line is no better. Their offensive line is no better at all. You look at what they're giving up defensively on the ground. What is Florida State doing themselves on the ground? Against Georgia Tech, they only had 93 rushing yards. Against Boston College, only 21 rushing yards. And yes, I know they got down early, so you kind of abandoned the run, have to go more towards the pass. That's obviously not ideal considering DJ Uiagalelei can't throw. I get that. But only 21 rushing yards Monday night against Boston College. Florida State can't win at the line of scrimmage. They just can't. They're doing nothing defensively. They're doing nothing offensively. And if you put all the weight on DJ Uiagalelei's shoulders, he's going to fail. We've seen that time and time again. We saw it at Clemson. We saw it at Oregon State. We're seeing it now at Florida State. So I don't solely blame him for the issues and for the 0-2 start. I definitely didn't see an 0-2 start happening. I fully expected Florida State to be 2-0 at this point in the year. 1-1, obviously at the worst. I really thought they'd bounce back Monday against Boston College. Really did. At home, kind of righting the wrongs from the Georgia Tech game. I really thought they'd take care of it. Not blow them out per se, but I really thought they'd get the win. So I was very surprised by that result. But here's another thing too. I'm going off a little rant here. There's something to be said every offseason, right? When we do our predictions and when we're looking ahead, we are talking about teams that finish with momentum. Teams that carry momentum into the season. So it may be a team that wins their final 3 games, wins their big bowl game, and returns a lot of talent. They've got a lot of momentum coming into the season, high expectations. Florida State didn't have that. Florida State had negative momentum. And really, that negative momentum began when they lost Jordan Travis in the second to last game of the year. That's where these problems started, right? Because yes, they beat Florida. Yes, they won the ACC championship. Then they, got all angry because they got left out of the college football playoff, which is clearly looking like the right decision at this point. And then they lose by 60 to Georgia in their bowl game. And many would go, oh, well, that's okay. Or that's only because everybody opted out. Their receivers opted out and their best, defensive players opted out. So Florida State didn't care about the Orange Bowl. And they lost by 60. Well, then all those players that opted out obviously went pro or transferred out, whatever happened. And, Mike Norvell didn't really replace them with great talent. DJ Uiagalelei is a veteran, sure, but he's not a great talent. So you've got this negative momentum coming in for Florida State where it felt like the team was just dead before the season even began. And you look at Norvell, guys, he's in his 5th year down in Tallahassee. He's in his 5th year with the Seminoles. And he hasn't done that great. He went 3-6 in 2020. He went 5-7 in 2021. He went 10-3 in 2022, going on that big win streak at the end of the season against very below average teams. 13-1 last year, and now he's 0-2. So he's had 2 good seasons, now entering his 5th year, and this 5th year is looking like it's going to go south really quickly. They're already 0-2. He is 4-7 against top 25 teams at Florida State, just 4-7. In 2022, they played only 3 ranked opponents and lost all 3 of those. Last year, they played 3 ranked opponents, and they only won 3 of those. LSU, Duke, Louisville. We're excluding the Georgia game, so 3-1 if you want to count that. But they really, Duke at home, okay. Louisville and LSU neutral sites, okay. I'm not taking away from their wins per se, but, not all that impressive. 0-3 in 2022 to 3-1 in 2023. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if Mike Norvell is the best coach in the world here. I don't know if he's going to, a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, right? Go look at, what we've seen in the past. A great example for me is like Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker had that one good year at Michigan State, and they inked him this massive extension. And then the next year they were garbage. And then you had the big scandal, and now he's gone. Pittsburgh, the same year when those 2 teams met in the Peach Bowl. Pittsburgh had a great year. They had some great talent in Kenny Pickett, some great receivers. Since then, done nothing. A couple of years ago, Arkansas was atrocious for a while. Sam Pittman had them in the top 10 at one point. Led them to a 9-win season in 2021. Had them back in the top 10 in 2022. They haven't been the same since. So every now and then, a team has a breakthrough season, a season that no one expects, exceeds expectations because they've got all this talent coming back, or the schedule lines up perfectly. But it doesn't mean that, they're going to sustain that success. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here with Florida State. They had 2 really good years in 2022 and 2023 because of the talent that they had coming back, because of the favorable schedule that was right in front of them. And now we're seeing this team regress back to the early years of the Mike Norvell era, where they had losing records in 2020 and 2021. Florida State is going to be lucky to win 7 games this year. I mean, and that's lucky. The schedule is tough. They've got to play Memphis, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, the Mike Norvell Reunion Bowl. And Memphis is one of the best group of 5 teams in the country. I mean, if Florida State can't fix their defense, the Tigers might actually win that game or keep it very, very close. They've got to go to SMU. Massive home game for SMU in their first year in the ACC. Got a pretty solid offense there. Clemson at Miami, who is looking like the best team in the ACC and a true college football playoff contender. At Notre Dame, who will be a college football playoff team. And then Florida, who was god-awful on Saturday, but still, rivalry game, never know what can happen. So, I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to lose to Miami. They're going to lose to Notre Dame. So, at the best, you're looking at an 8-4 season. But we know they're not going to win all of those other 8 games. That's not going to happen. So, again, 7 wins might be the best-case scenario for Florida State this year. And Norvell's not getting fired or anything like that. But then next year, the pressure is really on. The pressure is on significantly next year when Florida State inevitably goes 6-6, 7-5, whatever they do this year. I don't believe they're going to right the ship. So pressure is on for Mike Norvell because another disappointing year in 2025, he's out of there. Because if you look at the whole body of work, that'd be his 6th year. He really hasn't done much except in those 2 years. And again, every now and then, a team is bound to do that. So very, very, very interesting stuff happening in Tallahassee. That has been the biggest storyline for me over these first couple of weeks of the season. And again, I don't know if anybody truly expected this to happen. And if you did, I don't know if anybody expected it to be this bad. You lose 2 games, okay, whatever. It's unfortunate. But to look at that bad in doing so, not ideal for the Seminoles. It's been a rough year for them. You left out the playoff, and this is how you start the season. Playoff hopes are done. Your season's already over. That's a heartbreaking. It's crushing. I got a couple other things I want to talk about. We're going to get to the chat. I see a lot of other people popping in. So thank you all for being here. Again, we want to welcome you to the Gridiron Expert. Like the stream, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes the expert picks. That includes Chris Gates' online fitness training camp. We want you to check it all out. Our good sponsor, good friend, down in the description. Go check it out. Everything's there. And again, 100 expert pick signups this year equals a 24-hour live stream. So spread the word. Let's get them going. Maybe we'll get a couple of signups during this live stream. You never know. We'd love to have you on board. Love to have you guys on board. Really want to do that 24-hour live stream too. But I want to segue into the ACC as a whole, and this will be brief, obviously. You look at Florida State, that's the big storyline here. The conference as a whole looks really, really bad. I don't know what I expected. I knew the SEC and the Big Ten were going to be the top two conferences in the country this year. We knew that. The Big 12 was going to be interesting. The ACC was going to be interesting. Both felt relatively wide open. But I guess I didn't realize the ACC was going to be this bad. Obviously, Florida State's off this terrible start. Clemson got decimated against Georgia 34-3, and we expected Clemson to lose, but to lose that bad maybe was unexpected for some. Virginia Tech was a team that I thought could be a dark horse playoff contender, had them winning 10 games. That's not happening anymore because they just got beat on the road against Vanderbilt, which was very, very shocking. Syracuse did win their game, which was great, but they allowed 255 rushing yards to an Ohio team that was going through a rebuild. Then North Carolina looked like it could have some promise. They lose Max Johnson, their quarterback for the year. North Carolina State looked like they could have a breakthrough year under Dave Dover, and they did beat Western Carolina, but were trailing them in the fourth quarter before rattling off a few touchdowns to ultimately win by 17. I can tell you right now, NC State will lose to Tennessee on Saturday. Spoiler alert. We're going to have our prediction for that coming out on Friday. So we will have deeper in-depth analysis on that game, but NC State, to me, does not stand a chance. So right now you're looking at the ACC. Who are your contenders? Miami for sure. And it's still early, right? Like Clemson's still a contender. They only lost to Georgia. That was non-conference. They still got a lot of talent. They are a contender. But Miami looks really good. Georgia Tech has looked really good. Louisville looks really good. Maybe Boston College is in there. Throw in Clemson. But the teams that are kind of at the top of the standings right now are maybe not the teams we all expected it to be back in the preseason. I thought it would be Florida State and Clemson. Virginia Tech, I thought, would be in the hunt. Obviously, we thought Miami would be in the hunt. Didn't really think Georgia Tech would be up here at this point in time. Don't know if I thought BC would win against Florida State. Maybe could be solid this year. They haven't won 8 games since, 2008, 2009. So trying to end that streak, which would be awesome. And you're under Bill O'Brien. So the ACC is in trouble because it looks really, really bad. But at the same time, it's going to be a lot of fun because it is wide open up at the top. Obviously, Miami is the front runner. No doubt about it. But the Hurricanes are going to lose somewhere. Don't know where, but they're going to lose. They're not going undefeated. So it is a wide open race in the ACC. And it's hard to believe that if this conference is as bad as we think it's going to be, whoever wins it is probably still going to get a first-round bye in the college football playoff. So do with that as you will. Very, very interesting. I got 2 other main talking points I want to get to, and then trust me, we're gonna get to all of your questions and your comments in the chat. Load them up. It's kind of like a segmented show. It's like a mailbox. We're gonna hit all of our topics, and then we're gonna come in here and just go through all of what you guys want to discuss. So I'm really looking forward to hearing y'all's thoughts and addressing all your questions and comments. But I've been getting a lot of hate mail. Maybe is that the word? I don't know about Oregon, right? Like we still have Oregon ranked pretty high in our GE top 25 for week 2. And look, I say it a lot, and I'm going to continue to say it. The adjustments being made from week 1 to week 2 are always some of the biggest each season, as compared to adjustments between week 5 and week 6. Like that first game of the year is so hard for every single team. Doesn't matter who you're playing, whether it's an FCS team, whether it's a top 10 team. Like obviously you got to bring your A game, no matter who you're playing. But like this is the first game that these teams are playing in like 9 months. This is the first game for some of these teams since late November, mid-December. Like it's been a long time since these players have hit somebody other than their own teammates in practice. So a lot, goes into week 1 and the rust and the mistakes that we're going to see from these teams. Oregon had a lot of rust. And look, this is only going to continue with this age in college football, right? Not only are we seeing, months and months and months of not playing football, but we're seeing a lot of teams that are ushering in these new pieces, these new transfers that have not built up the camaraderie with their teammates, have not been involved in the schemes that have been implemented for years. Like, they're coming in late in the year, they're coming in middle of summer. When you've got teams with all these new pieces, especially at important positions like quarterback and the offensive line, they're bound to go through some growing pains early. That happened with Oregon. That happened with NC State. That happened with a handful of other teams in week one. It's bound to happen. Teams starting slow. And then in week two, they look completely different because they've knocked off that rust. But I look at Oregon. Should Oregon be worried? No. If you're subscribed to our Gridiron Expert newsletter, which is free, by the way, over on the gridironexpert.com. The betting newsletter is for Expert Pick subscribers, but our normal newsletter, that's completely free. Go sign up over on the gridironexpert.com. But if you subscribe to that, we talked about a handful of teams that maybe kind of like a panic meter, and going back and forth. Where's the meter in terms of these teams and where they should be panicking or not after week one? Oregon's was all the way to the left. Don't panic at all. The Ducks are fine. They're absolutely fine. They are still a national title contender. For me, they are still a top 4 team in the country. And I look at that Idaho game. It was weird because, yeah, they only won by 10 points, but they outgained them by 300 yards? I mean, they obliterated them in terms of yardage. It was just stupid mistakes by Oregon, right? You had a missed field goal in there. You had a fumble at the Idaho 22-yard line. Probably should have been a touchdown. They were stopped on downs twice in that game. They had to settle for a field goal deep in Idaho territory instead of going for a touchdown. I did the math, and Oregon probably, if they had played almost mistake-free football, probably should have won that game along the lines of 38-14, 38-7. If they do that, we're not having this conversation right now. Dylan Gabriel looked amazing, 41 for 39, 2 touchdowns, over 300 yards passing. I mean, it was phenomenal at QB and is a Heisman Trophy candidate, just like we predicted back in the preseason. So, no, Oregon has nothing to worry about. They made a couple of mistakes. They missed out on a couple of opportunities. Yes, it was not what a top 10 team should have looked like. Yes, it was not the result we expected, like when they scored 80 points against Portland State last year, but they're going to be fine. This is a team that had a lot of new pieces. A lot of pieces up front were new. Dylan Gabriel is new. A lot of pieces defensively were new. They're going to be just fine. They have nothing to worry about whatsoever. Now, I'll tell you what, this week when they play Boise State, if they lose to Boise State, watch out. If they struggle against Boise State, yeah, maybe we'll come back and say maybe they should be a little bit worried. Maybe there's a bigger issue here that we're not seeing. But I don't expect that to happen. I think the Ducks are going to take easy care of business against the Broncos. Should be a fun game, maybe a high-scoring game, but should win that game by double digits with ease. Should put up some big-time stats, big-time yardage. And Oregon in week 2 is going to look like the Oregon team we thought we would have seen in week 1, if that makes sense. So I'm not worried about Oregon in the slightest. I don't think you should be worried about Oregon in the slightest. They are still, right now, the second best team in the Big Ten, only behind Ohio State. Only behind Ohio State. But sticking in the Big Ten, USC. Are they a playoff contender? Are they a playoff contender? And I'm not basing that off of one win against LSU, right? I'm not saying, oh, they beat LSU, therefore they are playoff contenders, all right? But the missing piece for USC, and really the missing piece for Lincoln Riley over the course of his head coaching career, has been a defense. In Oklahoma, they had great offense after great offense after great offense, but never had a good defense. And that's what held them back. They never stood a chance against Alabama in the playoff. They got torched by Joe Burrow and LSU. The closest they ever got was that thrilling Rose Bowl loss against Georgia. Great game. That was a loss solely on Lincoln Riley, though, because I firmly believe that if Oklahoma doesn't squib the kick at the end of the first half that led to a Georgia field goal, if they just kick it deep, Oklahoma wins that game. 100%. So that was solely on Lincoln Riley. Defense didn't do very good, but 100%. Oklahoma wins that game. But Oklahoma never had a defense. Offense was great, never had a defense. Come to USC, Caleb Williams, generational talent. No defense. 2 years ago, they almost made the playoff with no defense. Offense was able to do everything. Last year, the writing was on the wall. The offense wasn't going to be able to carry like they did in 2022, and it showed. They started off like 6-7-0. Notre Dame absolutely destroyed them. They were getting exposed by a handful of other teams, Colorado, Arizona, and then finally gets destroyed by Notre Dame, and that was the beginning of the end for the Trojans last season. But you look at this year, they've got a defense. They held LSU, and this LSU offense that we expected to be pretty dang good, and one that I still think is going to be pretty dang good, held them to just 20 points. USC won the game at 27-20. And if you look at what they've got going ahead of them, the schedule really is very favorable. I took a look at the remaining schedule for USC, and they've got maybe 3 really tough games the rest of the way. And honestly, 3 games where they might be underdogs. I think they could be favorites in every other game. At Michigan, and Michigan looks very beatable right now. At Michigan, Penn State, and Notre Dame. Those are the 3 toughest games left on USC's schedule. And 2 of those, Penn State and Notre Dame, are at home at the Coliseum. They should be favored at home against Wisconsin. They'll be favored on the road against Minnesota. They'll be favored on the road against Maryland. Favored at home against Rutgers. Favored at home against Washington. At home against, or on the road at Washington, I should say. Home against Nebraska, and at UCLA. They will be favored, I think, in every single one of those other games. Maybe they're favored against Penn State or Notre Dame or Michigan. I don't think so. I think they're going to be slight underdogs. But here's the bottom line. We got a 12-team playoff now. USC doesn't have to go win the Big Ten. USC just has to find a way to maybe get to 10-2. So what I'm seeing is if USC can win just one of those 3 games against Penn State, Notre Dame, or Michigan, and then takes care of business everywhere else where they're probably going to be favored, and I would expect them to be favored, and if underdogs, very minor, slight underdogs, the Trojans could be a playoff team. And who would have thought that, right? With the way they ended last year, now with the loss of Caleb Williams, the transition to a tougher conference in the Big Ten. Now, the Pac-12 was very tough last year. We get that. But a tougher conference in the Big Ten. And this could be the year that USC maybe breaks through and makes the playoff. That is extremely, extremely possible. I mean, that is not far-fetched because, once again, you can afford a couple losses. That's the beauty of the 12-team playoff. You can afford up to probably 2 losses. For some teams, depending on who they are, maybe 3 losses. But you can afford 2. And if USC finishes the year at 10-2 with a win against LSU at a neutral site, and then a win against Michigan, Penn State, or Notre Dame, we're saying they're only going to get 1. Maybe they get multiple, but at least one of them, that's a pretty dang good resume. 10-2 in the Big Ten. Maybe only a 1-loss Big Ten team, 2-loss Big Ten team, they're getting in. Might be a 10 seed or an 11 seed. They might not get to host, but they're getting in. So watch out for the Trojans, guys. You look deeper into this team and you realize the defense is going to keep getting better. Miller Moss is going to keep getting better. This is a dangerous team that I don't think many of us expected to be in this position at this point in the year. I think I had USC going 8-4 back in our preseason predictions. That wasn't bad. I thought that was a good, solid debut. Now I'm looking at this. One of those losses, though, was to LSU. So bump them up to 9-3 at that point, which means, again, they're one upset away from getting to 10-2 and probably making the college football playoff, which is really, really hard to believe. Excuse me. So here's the beauty of this, guys. It's only not even week 2 yet. We're halfway. We're in between week 1 and week 2. And that's what's so exciting about this is we have no idea what in the world is going to happen. Like, if you thought week 1 was great, I think week 2 is going to be even better. We got some fantastic matchups on deck. Texas and Michigan, Tennessee, NC State, Colorado, Nebraska, Arkansas, Oklahoma State, Boise State, Oregon, the Cy-Hawk Trophy game between Iowa State and Iowa. Like, we've got some great, great games on deck this Saturday, this weekend. And when we do this live stream next Wednesday, there's going to be a whole nother list of storylines and topics that I'm going to be bringing to the table. That's like, hey, should this team be panicking? Hey, is this team a playoff contender? Is this team better than we thought, worse than we thought? Like, what's the deal here, And that's what's so great about this season. I will say also next week, we will be returning the 12-team playoff outlook. We will be bringing that back, kind of showing you what our projected 12-team playoff would look like based on our GE Top 25 rankings. So we'll be doing that every single week starting next Wednesday, which will be very exciting, bringing that back into the fold, kind of showing you what the standings would look like in this given moment. And really going back and looking at how much it's going to change, because that's the thing, guys. Don't overreact yet. It is still so early. We've played 1 week of college football. We got so much left to go. And that's what's so exciting about this. The teams that you think are good now might not be by season's end, and vice versa. We're going to see some surprise teams come out of nowhere. We're going to see more teams kind of make the case for themselves as true contenders. I mean, there's so much left to play over the course of the next few weeks. or really next few months, but we're going to start to see kind of the dust start to settle and really see who the contenders and pretenders are over these next couple of weeks before we get into conference play. So I'm really, really excited about that. Kind of excited to see how that all plays out. So this is it. So we're looking forward to. All right, let's get to it. Let's get to some of your questions and your comments. I will talk about Texas and Michigan, Tennessee and NC State, the Cy-Hawk Trophy game. I will talk about all those games later on here in the stream. And again, tomorrow we begin our predictions for those games, individual videos on those games right here on the channel. All the more reason to subscribe, hit the notification button, subscribe to the expert picks down in the description below. All the more reason to do all of that. But we will talk about some of them here, some early previews for those week 2 games. But let's go to the chat and take a couple of your questions and your comments. Let's take a look here. And again, hello to everybody that's new. Dion Thacker, good to see you. Doggy, good to see you. Double O'Neill. Let's see here. Who else we got in here? Chief Brody. I think I saw Ben earlier as well. So good to see you, Ben. Want to give a major shout out to Jerry, though. I love this comment here. Congratulations to Jerry, baby Tabitha, man. Congratulations. Birth of your daughter, man. I'm beyond pumped. When you sent me that letter, I was so pumped for you. I'm so happy to hear things are going well. Hoping the baby and mom are both doing extremely well and healthy. I'm pumped for you, man. So congratulations to you. Thank you for keeping me and everybody in the GE Nation in the fold, man. We are so excited and excited for you to have some Syracuse watch parties at your house, man. Some little family watch parties. And Orange, hey, got the win, man. Got the win over Ohio. And you can see back here, inverted. Syracuse and Georgia Tech, big game. Got the helmets that you sent us and our helmet that our man Bill sent us going head-to-head. Very underrated ACC matchup this Saturday, man. If they can beat Georgia Tech, a ranked win, watch out. Fran Brown era are going to get off to a fantastic start. But congrats again, Jerry. We're so excited for you, man. And really appreciate you and all of your support and baby Tabitha's support as well. All right, let's take a look. We talked about Florida State a lot. And all of you guys kind of made some nice comments there. Let's see. Yeah, I like what Brady said here. It is done. We said that in the newsletter last week. It's a done deal. Florida State's done. Their playoff hopes. That's irony, right? Like, I mean, I guess the only way they can stay alive is like whether either the ACC just continues to crumble around them and just ends up being really, really bad, or Florida State wins out. It's the only way they can survive, right? Because remember, I mean, if you win the ACC, you're going to the college football playoff. So you don't rule it out. But the problem with Florida State is, they're 0-2 and they're 0-2 in conference play. Their 2 losses came against conference opponents. That's where they're hurt. If they had lost to, a non-conference team in week 0 and then a conference game in week 1, I still say they're in a bad spot, but at least it's only 1 conference loss. But now both conference losses, they looked horrible in both. The offense looks atrocious. The defense can't stop anybody. I mean, it's done. It's done. Again, if you're Florida State, you need to get through your head that a 7-win season is probably the best thing you're going to get this year. And again, that's the best case scenario. There is a legitimate chance, considering the schedule that is ahead of you, that you could miss out on the postseason, especially if you do not quickly figure out all these problems. Does Mike Norvell make a change at quarterback? Do they put in Brock Glenn? Do they keep DJ Uyunglele? That's $1 million question. Can the offensive line finally open up some holes and see the running game? The leading rusher for Florida State right now is Roydell Williams, who has 48 yards. 2 games, and the leading rusher for the Seminoles is a guy that only has 48 rushing yards on the season. That's a problem. I'm not saying he had to rush for 100 yards in each game, but 48 yards as your leading rusher, that's bad. That's really, really bad. So they got a lot of problems to fix. It's not just DJ's fault. I don't think they're going to get fixed. Again, you thought they were 2 of the easiest games. Many of us thought they were 2 of the easiest games. They were double-digit favorites in both those games. And, yeah, it's going to be a long, long year. No doubt about it. Ben Knowles, appreciate you, my guy. Love your videos. We love you. We love you and the support, man. We really appreciate you being here and are happy to have you here. All right. No, I'm not necessarily saying they were a fluke last year either. 13-1, winning the ACC. I'm not saying they were a fluke. But I'm saying, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this in the nicest way possible. Look, I phrased it earlier, right? A blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. A couple of years ago, every now and then you find that one team, like Iowa many years ago, where they were like number 2 in the country, made the Big Ten championship. They win that game, they go to the playoff. They really haven't done much since. Yeah, they've been a perennial 9-10 win team. They've won the Big Ten West when they had divisions and made it, but they were never going to go to the playoff, right? Michigan State is a great example I like to use. Like the first or second year under Mel Tucker, when they lit it up, we're number 2, number 3 in the country, made the Peach Bowl. Everybody was high on the Spartans saying, we're back. And what have they done since? Absolutely nothing. Should have lost to Florida Atlantic on Saturday or Friday night with Jonathan Smith, right? So I'm not saying Florida State's a fluke because they won 10 games 2 years ago. They won 13 games the year before. But I'm saying that Mike Norvell did a great job recruiting. He had all of his guys in there. They did have a pretty favorable schedule. Let's be honest. In 2022, they lost all 3 games against top 25 opponents. Everybody else was complete garbage. They beat up on those really bad teams and won 10 games. Not their fault that the schedule was bad. Not their fault that the ACC was down. But they got fortunate. Then a lot of those guys came back in 2023, so they were very experienced. They took care of business, beat some quality teams. They beat Clemson in Death Valley. They beat LSU. They beat Louisville in the ACC championship without Jordan Travis. They were a good team last year, but once again, tons and tons of talent. Now all that talent is gone, and many people thought, oh, the guys they brought back into the transfer portal, the guys that stayed, especially up front on the defensive line, we're going to be just fine. We're going to bounce back, and that wasn't the case. And if you look at Norvell's track record, he wasn't good in 2020. He wasn't good in 2021. I think was relatively fortunate in 2022. 10-3 kind of overshadows the fact that they didn't beat anybody good in 2022. Last year was solid, but all that negative momentum is now coming in. They got torched by Georgia. Everybody opted out, whatever. But they got torched by Georgia, and now they're 0-2 to start the year. They've lost 3 straight games dating back to last year. It's not a very good start, and I think that's kind of indicative of the coaching and the culture that's at Florida State right now. So I'm not necessarily saying that it's a fluke, but I think that this year is not going to pan out very well, and I'm not expecting next year to pan out very well. So I think, yes, in a way, that 13-1 season was a bit of an anomaly because I don't think Florida State's going to bounce back this year, and I don't think next year all of a sudden they're going to return to form and be some sort of playoff contender. I'm not really banking on that unless Norvell does wonders in the transfer portal, and that's easier said than done. Big shout out real quick. We're going to come back up, but big shout out to my man, Louise, man. Good to see you back on the channel. Thank you so much for that super chat. I appreciate you, and I feel for you. I'm very, very sorry. I appreciate you and all your support. Appreciate you being here. Let it out. We're here to help. But you nailed it. You nailed it. Coming from a Florida State fan himself. No one expected this. No one, Louise, expected this. I expected them to beat both Georgia Tech. And I think I had Florida State at 10-2, I'm pretty sure. 10-3. I had them making the ACC championship and losing, but still making the college football playoff. That's how good I thought this team could be. And I really, DJ's such a weird anomaly because he's had his moments. He wasn't that bad at Oregon State last year. He had his moments at Clemson. He still led Clemson to an ACC championship game. Got to remember that. I don't know if that was strictly him or if it was more of the coaching of Dabo Swinney. I don't know, but he's had his moments. Certainly hasn't had him in these first 2 games, but like we mentioned, it's not just him. It's, as you mentioned, the line of scrimmage. There's no heart, a lot of undisciplined play. We saw a lot of undisciplined play against Boston College on Monday. The team seemingly just giving up pretty early in that game, I would add. Got down 14-0, and just the life was taken out of the team in the sideline of the stadium, and, it kind of felt like they were just done. So it is the line of scrimmage. It is the effort. It is the coaching. It is quarterback play. It's just a lot of things. And I can't help but wonder if how last year ended, all the negative momentum, or conversely, the pressure on this All right, are we back? I think we're back. Yeah, had to go restart the router, I guess. I apologize. Someone leave me a comment, make sure we're good to go. I think we are. Man, I apologize for that. So dang Wi-Fi issues, man. I can't control technology. All right, good. Thank you, Trey. I appreciate that. But yeah, I just recapping and finishing up my thought on what Louise had said. No one expected this. It is kind of an unprecedented territory for Florida State, and there is major concern going forward. But the last thing I was going to say was obviously the pressure for this team. It was like last year, everybody felt they were wronged, and maybe in a way they were. I think what we're seeing now, Florida State clearly wasn't. The playoff would have been horrible had they been in it. They would have gotten blown out in their game. But now they enter this year with like this chip on their shoulder. Like, we have to make the playoff. Now it's expanded to 12 teams. We've got a good team. We are going to make it. We have to make it. We have to avenge ourselves. And that clearly hasn't happened. So a mixture of how last year ended plus the added pressure, it just was not a good recipe for the season. Louise, we will have, though, I appreciate the super chat again. We will have a call-in show next Wednesday. I wanted to start things off by, really recapping a lot of stuff. Really want to kind of get back into the swing of things. I'm mad that I was so sick the last 2 weeks I couldn't do a live stream. But next week, call-in show. Every Wednesday, 7 o'clock Central Time, we're going to be here with the live stream. Every Wednesday going forward, we will be here. So stay tuned. Come back, and we will take your call immediately, my guy. I want you to vent. I want you to air your thoughts. Good thing is Florida State's got a bye week, right? You're on bye this week. So next Wednesday, call in, and we can talk about the Memphis game, the Mike Norvell Bowl that will be played next Saturday. So we definitely will dive deeper into that. So we got you covered. We are coming back with call-in shows. But again, Louise, I appreciate you and your support. Hang in there, man. Hang in there. Better days are ahead. I promise. Y'all are gonna be back eventually. Eventually, it's gonna be back. All right, I want to keep going through the chat here. Keep talking on some questions here. Let's see. That's a great question by Doggy. Again, do I think the ACC will only have Miami in the playoff and no one else? Right now, that's what it's looking like, right? The conference champion, if the season were to end today, I would definitely be picking Miami. They are the best team in the ACC right now, would get in. I don't know another team that could get in. Again, a lot of it depends on the record. Are they 10-2? Are they 11-1? The runner-up? Like who is in the ACC? What is their final schedule? But more than anything, what about strength of schedule? If you are a 10-2 ACC team, that's great. Who are your two losses to? Who did you beat? Can a 10-2 ACC team get in over a 10-2 SEC team or a 10-2 Big Ten team? Kind of like we talked about with USC. So that's the problem too with the 12-team playoff is you're going to have a lot of teams that are conference runner-ups, 10-2 teams that are not just competing against teams in their own conference, but it's like, we're 10-2, they're 10-2. Yeah, but their 10-2 is better than your 10-2. Like, it's going to be really hard to process for a lot of teams, a lot of fan bases. But obviously, I think a 10-2 in the SEC or Big Ten is more impressive. It holds more weight than a 10-2 in the ACC as of this moment. Although a lot of that does come down to who those two losses are against, who those wins are against. A lot goes into play there. But long story short, yeah, right now I would say the ACC is a one-bid conference when it comes to the playoff for the season. That's what it's looking like right now. Let's see here. Brady, they're winning as many games as they are lawsuits, and that is a big fat 0 as of right now, which is very, very unfortunate. All right, dog, you're stealing the show here, my guy. What are my thoughts on the idea that there are really only 2 power conferences rather than 4? Well, right now, that's not the case, right? I mean, right now, there are 4 power conferences. Obviously, the SEC and the Big Ten are stealing the show. They are the best. They are the toughest. They arguably have the biggest brands. But as of right now, we do still have the Big 12. We still have the ACC, and we can't disregard them. We can't overlook those teams and those conferences. I think in time, unfortunately, we are going to resort to only 2 power conferences. I think you're going to see teams like Clemson and Florida State and Miami and the ACC those type of conferences or those type of teams join an SEC, Big Ten, and kind of force the hand of every other conference out there saying, look, these guys are taking all the money. These guys are taking all the TV spots. These guys are taking all the power. We don't have a leg to stand on here. Just like the Pac-12, I mean, that's what happened with the Pac-12. It slowly started to dissipate. Oregon and USC and Washington, UCLA all go to the Big Ten. And when they made those decisions, and really keep in mind, that started with the California schools, right? Like the LA schools, USC and UCLA were the ones that were like, hey, we're exploring the idea of going to the Big Ten because those are two of the biggest brands and biggest markets in all of college football and really all of sports, period. And then when that happened, Oregon and Washington were like, oh, hey, we're pretty big brands too. We don't want to get left in the dust. So when the Pac-12 knew they were going to lose those 4 teams and bring their total down from 12 to 8, that wasn't enough to have a conference. So the writing was on the wall. That's when Utah and Colorado and the 2 Arizona schools had to jump ship, and then that's when for some reason, Stanford decided to join the ACC, which is completely idiotic in my opinion, but it is what it is. Got a team out on the Pacific Coast playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference, but whatever. So there aren't 2 power conferences. There are 4. But obviously, there are 2 power conferences that are much bigger and much better than the other 2. It's almost like a 1A and 1B type of situation. They're all on the same level, but one's just a little bit better than the other. And eventually, it is going to come down to just 2 power conferences. Or eventually, you're going to have 2 tiers of college football where it's like, almost like Premier League soccer. If you understand how Premier League soccer works and European soccer works, where it's like, we've got a list of 20 teams, and in college football, it'll be more like 50 teams that we consider the best. And then we're going to have this second tier of like another 50 teams that if they do really good, they might move in almost like a relegation system. I don't know. Or maybe you're going to take it where it's just Power 5, Power 4 only and Group of 5 only. Like, I don't know how exactly they're going to swing it, but the landscape of college football is changing. It's changing very fast. It's changing every day. It's going to change every year from here on out, whether it is conference realignment, more NIL rules and regulations, how they structure the landscape, playoff expansion, TV, media rights deals. Because bottom line is, it's a business. That's what it comes down to. College football is a business, and it's all about the money. It's about the money for these schools. It's about the money for these conferences. They could care 2 flips what I think or what you think or what the fans think or even what the players think. Because as much as they want to say that it's all in the best interest of the players, that's an absolute lie. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's not about the players. It's about the money. It's about the money for these athletic directors, these chancellors, these conference commissioners. That is what it's all about. And at the end of the day, they're going to do whatever they can do to put the most money in their pocket. That's what it comes down to. So, yeah, it's going to change a lot, man. It's going to change a lot over the next few years. And we're just going to have to sit back and tackle it as best we can and enjoy it as best we can. I definitely think it's taken a bit of a hit. I still love college football, and I love watching it. And I don't think we've seen the worst of it yet. I don't think the effects are taking hold of it that bad. I'm still not the biggest fan of the whole NIL stuff, but it's going to be interesting how it plays out. I'll leave it at that. Interesting how it plays out. Chief Brody, good to see you, my guy. Happy to have you here. Very happy to have you here. It's good to see you. We'll touch on Texas, Michigan shortly. Flobe is here as well. Good to see you, Flobe. Good to have you, man. It's been a minute. Definitely been a minute. And my man Eddie is good to see you as well. Good question from you, Eddie. Do I think Missouri, Texas A&M is still a 50-50 game? No, I would lean Missouri's way right now. I know that game being in College Station certainly holds a little bit of weight, but it didn't for Notre Dame. College Station did everything they could. Notre Dame still managed to play a 10-point victory in College Station. So I don't think it's a 50-50 game anymore, at least as of this moment. Call me again the week of that game. See how Missouri's looking. See how A&M's looking. Because A&M's another one of those teams that really shouldn't panic right now. They were a trendy upset pick, me included. I picked Texas A&M to win that game over Notre Dame, and I was wrong. I really thought they'd look a lot better, especially on offense, and they didn't. But they were also playing a top 10 team in the country. They were playing one of the best defenses in the country with a brand new coach in Mike Elko and Connor Wigman, who really hadn't had much starting experience. Like a lot was changing for this Texas A&M program. So it probably was a little bit too much to ask them to win against a top 10 team just like that. I still think they're a very good team. I still think they're going to have a very solid year under Mike Elko this year. I still think he's the right man for the job. So let's see what A&M looks like by that point. Missouri should be undefeated heading into that game. What does A&M look like? They still got a road game at Florida. I believe they play Arkansas before they play Missouri, which that could be an interesting game down in Dallas. So what is A&M looking like at that point? But right now would give a slight edge to Missouri. The Oklahoma game will be a great game in Columbia. Hopefully a night game, like you mentioned before, old Big 12 matchup. That's one beauty of these Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC is they're kind of getting to see the renewal of these rivalries. We're getting to see Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, and Texas and Texas A&M. Some of these old Big 12, Southwest Conference rivals that are finally getting renewed. I will say, it was a great tweet. I think it was from Brett McMurphy. There is no reason that we couldn't have Bedlam this year. No reason at all. No reason. There's no reason that we couldn't have kept that rivalry going this year. I don't know if Oklahoma or Oklahoma State were both too scared to play each other in a non-conference game, because when it was a conference game, they had no choice. It was required of them to play each other. But non-conference, now they have a choice. And they were like, hey, we don't want to risk losing a non-conference game. But the funny thing is, Oklahoma State this Saturday is playing an SEC team in Arkansas. Oklahoma this Saturday is playing a Big 12 team in Houston. So they're both playing teams from the respective conferences, but they're not going to play each other at all this season. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. Washington is still playing Washington State. Oregon is still playing Oregon State this season, despite all these teams being in different conferences. It could have been done by the Cowboys and the Sooners. I think they were both just a little too scared to get it done. Hope that changes in the future. Hope we get to see the renewal of Bedlam. But I would say right now it's not going to happen. But that was a tangent on just how great these rivalries being renewed are going to be. That Missouri-Oklahoma game is certainly going to be one of them. I like what Trey says here. My man Trey. It's hard to tell when it comes to USC and LSU because LSU's lost 5 straight season openers. It seems to be their annual strategy. And it is weird, right? But I will tell you this. It's a great point. We touched on that the other day about how LSU's lost 5 straight season openers, which is absolutely crazy to think about. But what has happened to LSU the last couple of years? The last 2 years under Brian Kelly, they've lost their season openers. And what have they done? They've won double-digit games. A couple of years ago, they lost their season opener and managed to still make the SEC championship game because it was a non-conference loss. The season opener was. So let that be some sign of encouragement for you. If you are a fan of a team that lost your season opener, maybe you thought you shouldn't have lost your season opener and you think your season's over, it's not. Still a lot of football left to be played. So maybe a team like Virginia Tech, they looked really, really bad in that game against Vanderbilt. But maybe Virginia Tech, that's a wake-up call for them. Maybe they slept walk in Nashville, and they're going to wake up and be the team we thought they were going to be. LSU was the exact same way. They lost. Everybody was saying how bad LSU was going to be. Keep in mind, last year, LSU, many thought could be a playoff contender. They were out of the playoff race by like late September. They lost to Florida State and they lost to Ole Miss, 2 losses, and they were done. Then got hot at the end of the year, still managed to win 10 games when you include their bowl win over Wisconsin. That was a solid bowl appearance as well. So just because you lost your first game doesn't mean your season's over. It's disappointing. It's not the start anybody wants, but there's a lot of football left to be played. And let LSU be a great example of that. 5 straight season openers. And the Tigers really haven't had many bad seasons over the last 5 years. They had that 1 year after the year. 2020 was not a great year. 2021 was not a great year. But last couple of years have been pretty solid. So let that be a sign of encouragement for you. Doggy again. If Caleb Williams had the USC defense we saw on Sunday, could they have won the national championship? Probably not the national championship, but they would have been a playoff team, could have been playing for a national championship. I don't think USC, last 2 years, let's talk Caleb Williams. 2 years ago, I don't think they would have beaten Georgia. Didn't see them. Georgia was just on a completely different level that season. So don't think that would have happened. And then last year, really would have come down to who they had played. It would have been close. Could they have defeated Texas in the playoff? Could they have defeated Michigan in the playoff? Washington and that offense? I know they did play each other last year. Obviously, USC and Washington did, and Washington got the win. So could they have defeated Alabama and Nick Saban? So, I think they could have played for a national championship, but I don't think they would have won it. Especially last year. Caleb Williams was phenomenal last year, just like he was in 2022, but that offense wasn't as good last year as it was in 2022. So very good question, though. Do agree Penn State looked very impressive. I will touch more on that here shortly. Go to Brady. How about the Irish? Virtually everyone picked against them, fought their way to earn the win. Defense top 5, capable weapons, O-line will improve. Yeah, we kind of just touched on that a second ago, Brady. It's a great question there in comment. Offensive line really impressed me. They held up. Considering the guys they lost, held up really strong against a strong A&M defensive line. I didn't think they were going to pressure Riley Leonard all night, but I was concerned a little bit, and that was a major point for me, thinking that A&M could pull off the upset. The offensive line held up. The running game was phenomenal, and you can't have a running game if you don't have an offensive line. So, the running game was the probably primary reason Notre Dame won that game. It was the running game and their defense. And again, you kind of can join running game and offensive line together. So I was very impressed by Notre Dame. And if you remember, I had Notre Dame going 11-1. I had them losing to A&M, and that was it. So do the math. I think Notre Dame is probably going to go undefeated now. I don't know if there is a team on their schedule that can beat them. Georgia Tech obviously will be tougher than maybe we expected in the preseason. Florida State, probably not going to be very tough. They get to host that game in South Bend. USC might be tougher than maybe we thought at the end of the year, but it's the bookends, right? Like A&M and USC. Notre Dame, they can afford a loss and they'll still get in. Ultimately, what that's going to do for the Fighting Irish is if they lose a game, they probably don't get to host a first-round game. They might. I had them as the 7 seed in my playoff prediction. I'm losing to A&M, winning 11 straight, hosting a playoff game. So part of it might depend on when they lose, who they lose to. That might play a role. But undefeated, you're definitely hosting a playoff game. Could even be the 5 or 6 seed. Lose a game, you're still making the playoff. Borderline hosting, doesn't really matter. You're still in there. You still got a chance. And they can clearly, like we saw on Saturday, win on the road. College Station is one of the most difficult places to play in the country. If they can win there, especially in a season opener, I think they can win anywhere. Truly. So, very fun team to watch, for sure. Stone Thomas, good to see you, my guy. It's been a minute. What kind of stat line would Ashton Jeanty need to have for a legit Heisman argument? That's a tough question. Touchdowns will be key, right? 6 touchdowns in the season opener against Georgia Southern. So, how many rushing touchdowns, or just total touchdowns, because he's a very good pass-catching threat as well. How many total touchdowns can Jeanty have? That'll be number 1. I think you're looking at a guy that needs to have probably about 2,000 total yards, rushing and receiving combined. If he can eclipse 2,000 all-purpose yards and get well over 20 touchdowns, and I know it's easier said than done, but he's already almost halfway there after one game, he could have a legitimate Heisman argument. The problem is for Jeanty, and it's really unfortunate, it's the strength of schedule. The Heisman voters are going to go, yeah, he's putting up great stats, but he's putting them up against, like New Mexico and Hawaii and teams like that versus his other running back in the SEC who's doing it against Alabama, LSU, Georgia, guys like that. So the strength of schedule could come back to hurt him, but at the very least, I could see Jeanty getting an invite to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony because he had a fantastic debut. And he's not slowing down anytime soon. And I'll tell you what, he'll even get more respect and more attention if he puts up another big stat line against Oregon. They might not beat Oregon. They don't have to beat Oregon. If he can rush for $150 against the Ducks and 3 touchdowns somewhere around there, or have 200 all-purpose yards against the Ducks and a couple of touchdowns, he will remain in that Heisman Trophy race. Again, the Oregon game is what could solidify his Heisman race right there because the rest of their opponents aren't all that great. Washington State, Oregon State, okay, cool. But Oregon's the big one. If you can put up some big numbers there, even if you lose, that will put the nation on notice. It'll put those Heisman voters on notice. The Heisman voters aren't very smart, but I think they would take notice from that. Good question, though. Love that question. I like Boise State a lot this season. A lot. All right, let's take a look here. Good to see everybody again. For all the people watching, whether you're watching now, watching later, again, want to give a shout out to our man Chris Gates, our sponsor for this month of September. Going to be involved with us in the videos, and the newsletters. We're really happy to have him on board. He's got a great training camp fitness program. Link for that down in the description below. Hit the promo code Gridiron. Go over there, enter Gridiron. You get 80% off your first month. It's a heck of a deal. I took part in it, joined it. Love all the stuff you get over there. Really great exclusive content. Hundreds and hundreds of workouts. You get one-on-one coaching, Q&A, weekly football pick-ems. I mean, it's some great, great stuff over on the website. So if you're looking to get in shape this season, never too late to start getting in shape. Or if you're just looking to kind of maintain a healthy lifestyle, this is a place for you, man. I'm telling you, Chris is a great guy. Got a great program over there. Again, the link for it down in the description below. Use that promo code. That's a deal that you don't want to miss. And the same for our expert picks. Again, I'm going to keep highlighting that. 100 expert pick signups, 24-hour live stream right here on YouTube. Do not want to miss out on that. We're almost 40% of the way to our goal, and we haven't even hit week 2. So we'd love to get you guys signed up, just contributing to the channel, contributing to our goal, becoming a member of our GE Nation, winning big with us, because you're not going to find any other handicapper that offers the picks at that low of a price, that has as great of a track record as we do. 63% all-time winning percentage, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 6 years. This is a place for you if you want to win big. And the link for that down in the description below. And sure would love to be able to have that 24-hour live stream, man. We want to get that going. Speaking of that, we talked about Chris Gates. We talked about his online fitness training camp. What about food of choice? So he's got a low-calorie, high-protein cookbook specifically for tailgating, which I absolutely love. Made a couple of those meals actually this last Saturday from my house. I wasn't tailgating, but I was like, hey, I'm going to be needing some football food. Food of choice on Saturdays, though, during the season. Sorry, Chris, I'm not talking strictly from the cookbook today. Man, I like those like ham and cheese sliders, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but like you put them in there and you stick them in the oven. You get that and some good dip on the long side of it. That is like peak football food for me. When it gets a little bit colder, once you get to like late October, November, and the weather starts to turn kind of cold, go for like a nice roast, go for like some chili, something like that. Something's kind of a little bit warmer. Love that stuff, man. I'm all over the place. You gotta have meat, right? You gotta have protein, some sort of meat. Burgers are great. Other than ham and cheese sliders, you gotta have some sort of protein involved on Saturdays, man. If you don't have that, I don't know what you're doing. But that's typically my main food of choice, man. But I mean, I can't tell you how many Saturdays and then carrying over into Sundays for NFL that I'm eating on those like ham and cheese sliders with like some good spinach dip, some good cheese dip. Man, they're just loading up on that stuff. So, and it also depends on the time too. Like what time am I eating, right? Like, am I on the couch all day? Am I out at a game? Am I wanting to make the meal for an 11 a.m. kickoff? Am I doing it for the 2:30 game? Like, there's a lot of factors that go into the football eating process. There's a lot of factors that go into how I treat my meals on game day. So, really good question. Would love to hear you guys' thoughts as well. I like that question a lot, but man, it's a big decision. Like, if I know I'm going to get to just hang out at home and get to watch these games all day, which most of the time I do, unless I'm actually at a game or at a watch party or something like that, like, I'm thinking about my meal like on like Tuesday or Wednesday. Like my food probably hasn't even fully digested from the previous Saturday, and I'm already thinking about what I'm doing for the next Saturday. So like it's a big deal, man. So that's a good question. I like that a lot. Let's see here. Again, I want to touch on Louise's comment here. We are taking calls next week. We do a lot of live call-in shows today. I wanted to get in, just talk normally, just have some fun, address the chat, address my talking points, which we'll have every week as well. But next week, calls return. We might alternate every other week, call in, just chat, call in, just chat. I don't know. It just depends on how we're feeling. But for sure, calls next week and plenty throughout the season. We'll be anxious to get y'all's thoughts, anxious for you guys to come in here and vent. Like, that's what we're here for, man. We want to get as many of you guys through as possible. So we're looking forward to it. All right, let's see here. We're going to talk about some of the games coming up this Saturday. We will do that. We will do that. Graham Brooks, good to see you, my guy. Happy to have you here. Good to see you, man. Let's see. Clemson, as we know, is going to be just fine. I really do believe that. And he kind of talks about that right here. Good to see you, Graham. Never good to get blown out, but Clemson's line of scrimmage looked noticeably better. Didn't have any miracle turnovers. Not good enough to contend for a natty, but good enough to win the ACC. And it really, I agree with you. I talked about that a little bit in our recap. Clemson can only do so much. I agree. The offensive line looked better. The defensive line looked better. And we knew the defense was going to be good, right? I mean, that was going to be the strength of the team. The $1 million question was skill positions, offense as a whole. Kate Klubnik, Garrett Riley, that duo, could they improve? And right now you'd say no. But here's the thing. No one really expected Clemson to win that game. And they really held their own for about 2.5 quarters. Certainly the first half. I mean, to be trailing the number one team in the country just 6-0 at halftime, that's not bad. Obviously, you got to play the full 60 minutes, but the defense can only do so much when the offense can't sustain drives. That's the thing, right? The offense really couldn't move the ball very well. They weren't getting the ball in the end zone. And so when you go 3 and out, I think there were only a couple drives that Clemson had where they ran more than 6 plays. So when your offense has really short drives, your defense is getting run down, eventually they're going to allow some big plays, and that's exactly what happened in the second half. So you could argue, right, like the game wasn't as bad as the final score indicated. Clemson didn't look great, but like they did everything they could. They just got to find a way to take that next step offensively. But I agree with you, Graham, that the line of scrimmage, which is so important, you can't win games, you can't contend at a high level if you can't dominate and win at the line of scrimmage, looked good. And Georgia was their toughest test of the year by far. If anything, everything else is going to be, I'm using quotes, easier going forward. Because, yes, they've got tough games down the road. App State this Saturday is not a slouch. It's not a given. Should be a win, but not going to be a given. But bottom line is Georgia was so tough. That was a great test for this team, a great opportunity to battle some adversity, to see what an elite team looks like and feels like playing against. Every other team should feel a little bit easier going forward. It's a non-conference game. Doesn't affect them in the standings. If they can win the ACC, they will make the college football playoff. I predicted that to happen in the preseason. It's only been 1 week. I do think Miami looks like the best team in the ACC, but I'm not going to change my prediction right now. So I'm not giving up hope on Dabo Swinney and the Tigers just yet. Still got some places to work on. Still a lot of room to improve, but the hopes of making the playoff, of retaking the ACC, still very much in front of them, and don't see those ending anytime soon, at least not right now. Very, very good conference. Doggy says, might as well call it the bi-coastal conferences, considering it literally stretches from coast to coast, and you're not wrong there. Not wrong there at all. Brady, he thinks that BC should be ranked instead of Georgia Tech. Not to discredit Coach Key, but Boston College put on a much more dominant performance in Tallahassee and in Bill O'Brien's first game. Good points. Very, very good points. I think there's two levels to this. Boston College's performance was very, very good. It was very impressive. They deserve to be receiving a lot of votes. Probably not to be ranked just yet. You could argue Georgia Tech deserves to be ranked for 2 reasons. Number one, they're 2-0. They not only beat Florida State in Ireland, but then they bounced back and beat Georgia State, which isn't a major accomplishment, but they did so by double digits, covered the spread. That was one of our expert picks last week, and they covered for us. Very happy about that. So they're 2-0 versus BC being 1-0. You could argue Georgia Tech did it first. Like, Georgia Tech, it goes both ways, right? Like, Georgia Tech's win over Florida State is both impressive and unimpressive. It was impressive because at the time we were like, whoa, this is a top 10 team, and Georgia Tech ran all over them. And then for Boston College to come in and do it in Tallahassee, it goes, oh, it loses a little bit of its luster. Like, clearly Florida State is not as good as we thought. Like, if Florida State had beat Boston College, it would have made Georgia Tech look a lot better. Not saying Georgia Tech's win over Florida State is unimpressive. Not saying it doesn't matter, doesn't count, or anything like that. Not to take anything away from it. But obviously, when you win against a top 10 team, and the very next week that same top 10 team gets destroyed at home, it's not a good look. So I don't think Boston College should be ranked yet. I do agree Georgia Tech should be ranked above them out of the 2. Great points you made, though, on BC. Boston College, you'll really know if they're the real deal. I believe they play Missouri in like 2 weeks, right? Is it week 3, week 4 that they play Missouri? And so that'll be a true test, right? Even if Boston College can just hang with Missouri, lose that game by like 1 possession, take them to the wire, I think it would show a sign of great things to come up in Chestnut Hill. No doubt about that. So I'm excited too. I like Bill O'Brien, man. I've been a fan of him his entire career. Loved him at Penn State. Loved him in the NFL. He's just kind of a no-nonsense type of guy. Very good offensive mind. Not a great general manager. Not a great team manager when it comes to like, salary cap and building a roster like he had to do with the Texans. But he's not having to do that. He's having to navigate the transfer portal, but he's not like a GM. So I think it was a really good hire. I think Boston College could challenge for that first 8-win season in 15 years. This could be the year they do it. They looked really, really good. Again, I don't know if it's so much of Boston College being really good or Florida State being really bad or a mixture of both, but regardless, future is looking very bright. Very bright. All right, let's see here. Going through the rest of the the comments here. Trying to find out where we were at. I got Sarah Brown on the line, on the chat. What's going on, Sarah? Tell me about them dogs. She's a Mississippi State fan. I seem to have misplaced my cowbell, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd be clanging it for you. But look, they got the win, man. They got the win. Jeff Levy, his first game. First game as a head coach. First game as head coach of the Dogs, and they got a win. Next week's a true test. Arizona State looked really, really good against Wyoming. So was that a matter of Wyoming just struggling with some new pieces and new head coach? Is Arizona State really that much better? The desert, not an easy place to play. So Mississippi State's offense against Arizona State's offense out in the desert should be a really fun game late Saturday night. That'll tell you a lot of what you need to know about Mississippi State because Arizona State certainly improved. They're not that great. So if they get destroyed by the Sun Devils, it could be a very, very long year considering the road isn't getting easier. Mississippi State's still got to play some of the best teams in the SEC, arguably the best conference in college football. It's still going to be a losing season for the Dogs, unfortunately. But, hey, a win's a win. You're 1-0. And, again, you're going to learn a lot about your team in week 2. And that's the case for a lot of teams, right? That's the case for a lot of us. In week 1, we see so many teams play these FCS programs, these group of 5 programs that they're paying to come play them. Doesn't really tell us a lot. But then week 2 rolls around, and we see a lot of these teams playing more quality teams. I mean, all the games we've talked about. Michigan played Fresno State. Texas played Colorado State. Now both these teams are playing each other. Much more difficult test. Arkansas played UAPB. Oklahoma State played South Dakota State. Now they play each other. Much better test. Iowa played, Illinois State. Iowa State played North Dakota. Now they're playing each other. It's like week 1. I mean, so many instances of the games that we're talking about this week, they played kind of cupcake opponents, most of them in week 1. Now they're playing a better opponent in week 2, and that's going to be a really good measuring stick to truly show how good or how bad these teams really are. So that's why week 2 is always so much fun, always a good opportunity for us to really, honestly, to me, be a good way to judge a team more so than week 1. If you're going to overreact to a performance, or if you're going to judge a team based on a performance, judge them more on what they do in week 2 than what they do in week 1. That would be my mindset going forward. And I think you're going to see that a lot for a lot of teams this week, including your Dogs, including Mississippi State. Good question, and good to see you. Let's see here. Clement, good to see you, my guy. Happy to have you here, Clement. Appreciate you and all your support as always, man. I really do. These conference realignments, along with NIL, slowly taking the joy and fun out of college football for the fans and the players. I don't know if it is for the players. Some players, maybe. A lot of these players are making more than you and I will ever see in our lifetime. And that's kind of crazy to think. Some of these players are seniors in high school that are making more than we'll ever see in our lifetime. And that's insane to think about. The conference realignments, to me, aren't taking the meaning of college football and the joy of college football away. It's the NIL that's doing so, because that, in essence, changes the entire game. Players are no longer playing for their schools. They're not playing for the right reasons. They really could just care less. Show me the money. I'll come play for you. Don't show me the money. I don't really care. Players have more incentive, and it's not a good incentive to quit. If the team is struggling, if they are putting up bad performances, you know what? I'm just going to quit because I've already got my money. I'm already a millionaire at 18 years old. So why should I try? Or man, this team is horrible. I know I'm the starting quarterback. Like, I think a great example, Clement, is KJ Jefferson in Arkansas. He was a cancer for that team last year, and clearly did not get off to a very good start at UCF. But he was a cancer in the locker room. He was a cancer from his character and his style of play, and obviously it was an NIL dispute. He went to UCF, who was going to willingly offer him more money. He quit on the team. He really did not care much about the Arkansas Razorbacks, especially later in the year when the team began to struggle. The season was over. They weren't going to contend for anything. Why put forth the effort? Why risk getting hurt for a worthless team or for meaningless games where I could instead sit back, play lazy, or not play at all, take my money, and either go pro or go play for a better team. And that's the unfortunate thing. You're going to see teams at the group of 5 level that are going to get paid a significant amount of money to go transfer to a higher level team. I can't remember. I don't know what Ashton Genty is. I don't know if he's a junior or senior. I can't remember his classification, but Genty's a great example. You would think he'd stay at Boise State if he has another year of eligibility, but if he has a breakthrough year and has one more year of eligibility, some of these elite teams in the country are going to come calling, and they're going to come offer him lots and lots of money, more money than Boise State can offer him. And most of the time, these players would be crazy not to go. I give credit to some of the guys at Colorado State. Colorado State, they got offered a lot of money to transfer out their quarterback and their star wide receiver, and they said, no, we're staying with the Rams. We have loyalty to our school. You can't lure us away with money. And I admired that. I understand players leaving for money. I really do. I get it. Who wouldn't leave for millions of dollars? I think any one of us would certainly leave a current job if a new job came calling with a significant pay raise. So I do understand it, but I do think it does take away the loyalty aspect and just the way college football is handled. NIL is single-handedly running off a lot of coaches. Nick Saban is a main one. His words literally were, instead of people coming to me when I was recruiting them and them saying, hey, how are you going to develop me? How are you going to make me into a better player? How are you going to make me into a better person? Those questions stopped being asked. It was more so, what's you going to pay me? And Nick Saban said, well, I'm going to pay you this much. And they go, ooh, Ohio State's offering me this much. You going to up it? And he's like, no, I'm not. All right, fine. I'm not getting you. So it no longer was going to play for Alabama for the right reasons or any school for the right reasons. It became a money thing. Jeff Hafley, the head coach of Boston College, he left to become an assistant. He was the head coach at Boston College. He left to become an assistant with the Green Bay Packers. Some say it's a step up. Some say it's a lateral, whatever. He left because of the changing landscape. He's like, I don't want to mess with this. This is no longer the college football that I've grown to learn and love and work for. I don't want to mess with NIL. I don't want to deal with players only coming to play for me for money and dealing with that drama in the locker room and dealing with that type of recruiting tactic. I want guys to play for me because they want to play for me. But the problem is you can't do that. Just look at Clemson. That's Dabo's philosophy, right? Dabo's philosophy is we're not using the transfer portal. I refuse to use the transfer portal. We do use the transfer portal. It's called high school. We recruit high schoolers. That's our transfer portal. And what's happened? Clemson hasn't completely fallen off, but they are nowhere near the same Clemson team that we saw many years ago where they were consistently in the college football playoff winning national championships, right? They haven't been able to compete, let alone in the SEC, let alone at the national stage. Got decimated by Georgia. Struggled the last few years. Yes, they won the ACC a few years ago, reclaimed that title, but they have kind of been left behind because of their inability to use the transfer portal, because of their inability to really utilize NIL. And that's great. He's sticking to his morals. He's sticking to his beliefs. But at the same time, you choosing to do that is hurting your program. It's hurting your program. You've got to find some sort of balance where you still kind of believe in your morals and you believe in how things are going to be, but also, you've got to adapt. You got to adapt with the times. So it's an unfortunate thing that's happened. It's an unfortunate direction that we're heading, and it's not going to change because there's no way they're ever going to take this away from the players. Players have a lot of power now, a lot of incentives now. They're never going to take away NIL. They're never going to put regulations on NIL because, in essence, it's going to ruin the experience of the players. So it's not going to get any better. We just have to adapt just like the coaches and players have to adapt. So, look, college football is still great. We're loving it every Saturday. We're going to watch every game. We're going to do these live streams and do our picks and predictions. The game itself is still very, very enjoyable. The landscape and how it's structured, that has changed, and that's not as enjoyable. But I'm still loving what we've got. Not necessarily a fan of how it is, but I'm still loving it. And we ain't going anywhere, that's for sure. Hope that makes sense. Don't get me off on a tangent, man. You could get me going for hours about the transfer portal and NIL and the state of college football. I could talk about that for hours and hours and hours. And if we ever get a 24-hour live stream, we might dedicate an hour or two strictly to that. Right? We have 24 hours. We have a lot to talk about. So we might do that if we ever get to that point. But yeah, I'm not gonna keep going tonight. We're going to touch on some of the current games here in a second. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about Texas and Michigan and things like that. Want to touch on a couple more comments before we do that. Andrew Mueller, good to see you, Andrew. Wants LSU to beat Ole Miss. And yes, they do, in fact, get Alabama at home. Golden Sharks, good to see you on here. TriStar, good to have you. So let's answer a few more of these questions before we touch on the final two games, and then we call it a night as we are approaching an hour and a half live stream. Talk about a great way to kick things off. Texas Tech, they're near scare and love it. Concerning. And they've got a pretty banged up defense now. That was their problem, right? The offense was good. We knew the offense was going to be good. Could the defense be good? They were not. The defense was very, very bad against Abilene Christian. And now they've got a pretty banged up defense heading to Pullman against a Washington State offense that looked really, really good. So the Mike Leach Bowl up in Pullman this Saturday night, going to be very, very interesting, probably pretty high scoring. Really could go either way in that game. But again, I would judge a team more off of what I see in week 2 than I see in week 1. If I'm Texas Tech, I'm definitely concerned because that game against Abilene Christian should not have been nearly as close as it was. 1-point win in overtime, yeah, that's not acceptable. But I would pump the brakes. Let's see what they can do in Pullman. They're slight underdogs, I believe, in that game right now. Started off as favorites. It switched. Money has gone towards Washington State. That's going to be a fun late night game. But my initial thoughts right now are maybe, just maybe, Texas Tech isn't going to be as good as I thought they were. But again, I'll make a better judgment call after what I see on Saturday. Scotty, he was part of a pick'em last week, went 9-1 in the 10-game pick'em, but he won the tiebreaker, which is the amount of or total amount of scores in a game of your choice. Dude, that's awesome. Congrats, man. 9-1. That is a phenomenal record. Phenomenal record. 90%. I mean, shoot, man, you can't get much better than that. And dude, the tiebreaker, man, this always stressed me out. Like when you're doing those, like what's going to be the combined score? Predict the final score. Like the amount of times that like I've been in that situation where I'm 9-1 or whatever the situation is, and it's come down to the tiebreaker. It's so stressful. So that's awesome that you pulled off the win there too. So congrats, Scotty, man. Keep it up. Keep it up with the college pick'em, man. Let's see, Brady. It's going to be certain that Napier will be gone from Gainesville in a few weeks. So who's a viable replacement? They've got a lot of money to spend and a lot of guys to go after. The funny thing with the big-time schools is you're always going to get some really big names. Florida needs a big name, and they need a proven name. Billy Napier was a very – I'm not going to say – clearly it's panning out to be a bad hire. A program like Florida or Alabama, obviously with the departure of Nick Saban – they don't want some up-and-comer. And that's all Billy Napier was. Billy Napier had a very good run at Louisiana, but winning at the Sun Belt level is much easier than winning at the SEC level. Recruiting Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, and I know you're competing against LSU and Tulane and guys like that, but recruiting Louisiana is a lot tougher than recruiting Florida. Competing against Arkansas State and Old Dominion is a lot tougher than playing, or a lot easier than playing, Alabama and Georgia. So, yeah, he's going to be gone unless he rights the ship, and he's not. We know he's not. Who are they going to get? I don't know. I see people talking about Lane Kiffin. People want Urban Meyer to come back. I mean, it's ridiculous names that are being thrown out there, and I don't think those are going to happen. But all I'm saying is they've got to go with the big name. They've got to go with the big name. They've got to go with a proven winner. That's who they've got to get, a proven winner. Not some guy that's a proven winner at the FCS level or a proven winner at the Sun Belt level or the American level, a proven winner at a high level. at the SEC, Big 10, Big 12 caliber level, who's actually done something. No one's going to get excited for some new Sun Belt up-and-comer like Billy Napier again. Sometimes those hires pan out. Sometimes they do. I mean, Eli Drinkwitz has done pretty well at Missouri. He had one good year at App State. 1 year at App State, boom, off to Missouri. And he's done okay there. I mean, last year was his breakthrough year. I think if he had struggled last year, he would have been gone. He needed that year. He delivered. This year, obviously doing great. But that's the thing with big name schools, right? Big name schools that have a lot of money to spend have to go get a big name coach to please the fan base. They can't take a risk on some up-and-coming coordinator, some up-and-coming head coach from a lower level, because it is exactly that. It's a risk, and they don't have time to risk. They don't want to go through a rebuilding process. Those schools, Alabama, Florida, your SEC caliber schools, your big-name schools, they don't believe in rebuilds, right? It is, we want to keep winning. So who's going to be the guy that can come in and immediately win? That's what you have to ask yourself. So I wish I could give you more names. I really don't know. But I know whoever it is, if it's Florida, it's got to be someone big. And maybe they're going to pull a rabbit out of their hat. I don't know. But it's got to be someone big. And I know whoever it is, they're going to pretty much give a blank check to. I know that. But on the flip side, money isn't everything. Coaches want to go into a good situation. Florida right now is not a good situation. They are a dumpster fire. They will probably be a bigger dumpster fire when Billy Napier gets fired, whether that's at the end of the season or midseason. So who wants to go put out those flames? Not many coaches want to do that, especially if they've already got a pretty decent gig where they are. So money and brand and money and name isn't always everything. So something to watch out for there too. They should just never fire Dan Mullen. Some say Dan Mullen quit, but all I'm saying is he had them rolling multiple New Year's Six bowl games. Great offense. If Marco Wilson doesn't throw that shoe, maybe they make the college football playoff that season. So they shouldn't have fired him. These big name schools always freak out. They lose a couple of bowl games. They have one bad season, and it's like, you're fired. You're fired. We're too good to have a losing season. We're too good to lose 2 Cotton Bowls in a row. All right, fire me. Who are you going to get that's better? We're going to get Billy Napier. Okay. Like, I mean, seriously, like you got to, it's a risk and reward decision here. And Florida made a very poor choice. Back on the food topics, there were like some good chicken chili. Yes, those are fantastic. Fantastic. Chicken chili. Yeah. I honestly, I think I'd lean more towards chicken chili than I do regular chili. I like regular chili, but I don't know. The chicken chili's just got more to it. It's got a little more kick. It's got like, I don't know. I like it better. You can do it more. You can put over some rice, eat it with a spoon, eat it with some chips. Like, I don't know. Both are good, but I lean more towards chicken chili. Spinach dip, top tier though. Spinach dip and cheese dip are my top 2 for sure. So I like that. Golden Sharks, Vanderbilt making a bowl game. Let's pump the brakes again. Let's pump the brakes. Judge a team more by what they do in week 2, not in week 1. Vanderbilt, I think, plays Alcorn State this week, so they'll win in week 2. But look, the win over Vanderbilt or Virginia Tech was great. But here's the thing: that's a non-conference win. I remember looking at Vanderbilt's schedule and their win total for the season. I think it was like 2.5. And I said, okay, if they can win all their non-conference games, with the exception of Virginia Tech, they'll hit their over. And they play Alcorn State, Georgia State, and Ball State. I think they can win all those 3. They've already beat Virginia Tech. So if they go 4-0 in the non-conference, awesome. They have 4 wins. Can they really win 2 SEC games? It's not impossible. They did it just a few years ago. They beat, Kentucky and Florida? So it's not impossible. But the schedule, once again, is very tough for the Commodores. 2 games in the SEC this year is a lot easier said than done. Offense looked great. Diego Pavia is a real deal. The defense, Clark Lee's a defensive-minded guy. They held Virginia Tech in check. So maybe the Commodores are going to be the surprise team this year. A bowl game would be awesome. I'd love nothing more. I think just getting to 5-7 would save Clark Lee's job, if you want my honest opinion. I don't think they have to make a bowl game to save his job. Bowl game definitely would. But just being competitive, 4 wins is an improvement from last year. I think doubles last year's win total. So 4 or 5 wins, I think, is enough to keep him around for another year. But I don't know. We'll see. Vanderbilt's definitely an intrigue. They got a lot of votes in the AP poll. They're not ranked, but they got a lot of votes. So I thought that was very, very interesting. Can you imagine Vanderbilt being ranked in like 2 weeks? Imagine Vanderbilt and I don't even know who their first SEC game is. If we get like a top 25 SEC matchup with Vanderbilt in it, how awesome that would be. Do y'all remember back in 2017, I think it was, when Vanderbilt started 3-0 and the guy was all like, Alabama, you're next. Like, we're going to show you how to play some real SEC ball because they beat Kansas State, right? That was a big non-conference win in Nashville. They beat Kansas State. They were 3-0. Alabama was next, coming to Nashville. And I can't remember the player's name, but he made an idiotic mistake of just being like, Alabama, you're next. And Jalen Hurts was like, technically, theoretically, yeah, we are next. Like, we are next on their schedule. So, like, yeah. And they beat them like 59-0. Like, Vanderbilt was never going to win, period. 3-0, great start. Congratulations. The 2:30 CBS crew, the SEC Game of the Week crew was in Nashville the following week for that game. Like, it was so funny to me because Vanderbilt never stood a chance. But just to add extra fuel to the fire, acting like you're all high and mighty because you started 3-0 and you beat a mediocre Kansas State squad and then got beat 59-0 by Alabama was just peak cinema. Loved it. So, anyways, fun memories from the past. Let's see here. TriStar. No. You're not the only one. I'm very excited about that game. I think this year's game will be a little bit more competitive, a little bit closer than last year's game in Boulder. And I will say tomorrow night, we will have a Colorado-Nebraska prediction right here on the channel. Our official Colorado-Nebraska prediction right here on the channel. So do not miss out on that. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central Time, we will have it posted. We're doing 3 individual prediction videos. Texas, Michigan, Colorado, Nebraska, Tennessee, NC State. All 3 of those videos coming out between tomorrow and Friday. Do not miss out on those guys. It's going to be in-depth analysis. But I'm very, very excited for that matchup. It's going to be a lot of fun. Trey, South Kakalaki. How are they going to respond after the farce against New Dominion? They're not going to respond well. They're just not. I had South Carolina going like 4-8, 5-7 this year, somewhere around there, and I got criticized for it heavily. I think that game against Old Dominion tells you everything you need to know. They did not look good at all. The defense was atrocious. The offense was very, very bad. Lenora Sellers has a lot of potential at quarterback, and they might look a little bit better, but they're going on the road to a Kentucky team that's going to be good. 10 starters back on defense. Brock Vandegrift and at quarterback, underrated wide receiver core. I like Kentucky a lot in that spot. I think South Carolina looks cleaner. They're more disciplined. They make less mistakes, but they're not winning that game. They're not winning that game. Not a chance. Not a chance. Like that too. We talked about KJ Jefferson earlier. That's where the reference comes from. His Superman jump from the 4-yard line was the beginning of their fall from grace. 100% it was. 100% it was. But that just sums up Arkansas football in a nutshell. Arkansas had that game won. If they just run the ball in the end zone, they go back up 14 points. I think it was against A&M, probably going to halftime up by 14 points. Instead, they only went up by 1, 14-13. Lost that game. Cam Little's field goal nicks the top upright. No good. And they haven't been the same since. I don't know if Arkansas would be more relevant if they win that game, but that season would have been different. Game day would have come to Fayetteville, I believe the next week. I believe it was the next week they hosted Alabama. Yeah, they did. So they win that game. College game day comes to Fayetteville for a top 10 showdown between Arkansas and Alabama. The mindset around the team is significantly different for that Alabama game. Maybe they win it, maybe they don't. I don't know. But the entire mindset of the team is different in 2022 if KJ Jefferson does not fumble. And here's the thing. Even if he fumbles, if he had just fumbled and it hadn't been returned for a touchdown, I still think Arkansas wins the game. I still think the season and maybe where we are now is different. But it was the fact that he fumbled, A&M returned it, and gave him all that momentum heading into halftime. That's what completely did them in. And you could just tell it was over right in that moment. The look on Sam Pittman's face, the look on the sideline. And I'll never forget that. Sam Pittman walking away saying, we've got to learn to be okay. We're acting like we're down by 14, but we're up 1. We're going into half up 1, and we're acting like we're down 14. I was like, that tells you everything you need to know. He lost that locker room. He lost that team in that moment. And they haven't been the same since. Maybe their fortunes will change, though, Saturday against Oklahoma State. A win against the Cowboys could end up being another special year. Or I say another, could end up being finally being a special year for Arkansas. Mark, good to see you, man. How about those Canes? Canes look great, man. Best team in the ACC right now. Unbelievable win in Gainesville. I picked them to win the game. I thought they'd win the game. I didn't think they'd win it like that. Did not think they'd win it like that. So that was extremely, extremely impressive. And you should be very excited about the team you've got. Man, the U, I'm not saying the U is back, as Golden Shark said. The U may be back. I'm not saying they're back yet. But I did have them at 10-2. And that is definitely looking good. Definitely looking good after what I saw on Saturday. I'm glad someone likes it. Doggy says the rants are entertainingly awesome. I'll keep that in mind. You know what's funny? I don't even go into them with the mindset like we're gonna rant today. We're gonna have like a premeditated rant, right? Like that doesn't happen. It just flows. It just happens. It's like y'all get me off topic, man. You get me ranting. It's like being in school trying to get your teacher off topic. Y'all do that by getting me on these rants. But I ain't complaining. Christian, good to see you. Last few comments here before I switch gears and we wrap things up. What's your thoughts on Louisville with Florida State struggling, Clemson not as good this year? The Cards going to make the ACC championship again? Very, very possible, man. The Louisville looks really, really good. Obviously, losing Colin Lacey was a big loss, but still very, very talented. Defense severely underrated. Pretty favorable schedule for Louisville this year too. And with the ACC being as wide open as it is, why not Louisville? Why not us? Right? So I don't know. I think right now Miami feels like a pretty good pick to make the ACC championship. The question is, who are they going to play? Could be Louisville. Could be Clemson. Could be Georgia Tech. Kind of a wide open race right now for second in the ACC. But Louisville is definitely up there as one of the best, no doubt about it. So, I mean, they had a great year last year. Bad way to end, but they bounced back in a big way in week 1. Should crush Jacksonville State in week 2. Anything less than a 30-point win, I think would be disappointing. I like this team a lot, Christian. I really do. So I'm excited to see what they have. I'm excited to see them play true opponents, though. That's what I'm excited to see. How does Louisville stack up against better opponents? At home last year, they were phenomenal. Away from home, they won a lot of games, but they were a lot closer. Can they finally win convincingly more so on the road? That's what I want to see. Scotty says Kansas. Lance Leipold from Kansas going to Florida. That would be something. I mean, Leipold is a big name right now. What he's done at Kansas has been unbelievable. Kansas would cry if he left. I mean, I'm afraid Kansas would regress a lot if he left for Florida. But that's the question. Would Leipold take that next step? He is a program builder. And I think he'd actually do very well in Florida. I really do. But would he be willing to leave Kansas? Kansas investing a lot of money because of their rise under Leipold. A lot of money into their new stadium. They're not even playing a true home game this year. They're playing at the Chiefs Stadium for the majority of the season because they're putting so much money into their new facilities and their new stadium. That probably would not have happened had it not been for Leipold. So would he leave right at the completion of that project, or would he say, no, I'm going to see this through? But I like that pick. It's a very, very interesting name to throw out there. I like that a lot. Christian, is this Dabo Swinney's last year at Clemson? No, I don't think so. Unless something just crazy happens. I just don't see that happening. Because why? Where would he go? Are they going to fire him? They're going to fire a multinational champion, two-time national champion, a guy who has led you to the most success in your program's history. For what? I mean, it depends on what Clemson does this year. But even if Clemson goes 6-6, are you going to fire? They're not going to fire him. And I really believe if Dabo was ever going to leave for a school, it would have been for Alabama, his alma mater. He didn't leave. So where's he going to go? I don't think, I see what Brady's comment just came in. I don't think he's going to retire. He's still relatively young, still got a lot left in the tank. But maybe he gets run off. Just like Nick Saban got run off, just like Jeff Maybe Dabo just reaches his breaking point. He goes, you know what? This isn't worth it anymore. I've got my national champions. I've done all I can do. I'm tired of the state of college football. I'm tired of NIL. I'm tired of the transfer portal. I'm tired of being berated for my lack of use of it. So you know what? I'm done. I'm done, and I'm just going to quit. I'm going to take my rings. I'm going to quit. Maybe so. I think that'd be shocking. I would be floored if that happened because Dabo's pretty stubborn. He's a pretty stubborn guy. But never say never. Never say never. I can't rule it out, man. Can't rule it out. The state of Clemson. So we're talking about state of college football. The state of Clemson football is really, really interesting to me, for sure. So we'll see how the rest of this year pans out. Also depends on what Clemson does. He wouldn't retire. Well, I say that. A lot of times people like to go out on the high. So maybe if he wins the ACC or makes the playoff, he would go out on that high. I don't know. But I just don't see this really being the last year. Don't see that. You know what? Let's make this our last comment here, and I think it's an appropriate one because my man Noah's here. What's going on, Noah? Good to see you, man. Good to see you, man. It's been way too long. Good to see you. Happy to have you here. Hope you're doing well. This is not just any normal guy here. This is a national champion. This is a national champion. Noah Caldwell, national champ with Sam Houston, baby. He showed me his championship ring once. That was pretty sick. Winning the national title during that spring COVID season, which was absolutely awesome. What are my thoughts on that game? Dude, I'll be the first to admit, I picked Rice to cover in that game. I picked Rice to cover in that game, and that game was over. I knew my cover was done within like the first 7 minutes when Sam Houston jumped out to like that 14-0 lead. So they looked really, really good. Rice was supposed to be a pretty solid team, one of the best teams they've had in years, and Sam Houston just strolled on in there and destroyed them, dominated from start to finish. So I agree. They looked really, really good and could flirt with a bowl game this year because, you know it firsthand, Noah. You go back and look at last year. It wasn't the greatest debut at the FBS level, but towards the end of the year, they started playing a lot more competitive, a lot of close one-possession losses. Kind of seemed like they were starting to figure things out. Now we're turning a lot of experience, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm excited to see what they've got, man. That Rice win was not one that I predicted them to win, so they're already ahead of schedule in terms of my predictions and where I had them. The Conference USA, as we know, is a very weak conference, and that is good for Sam Houston. That is very good because they might not beat a team like Western Kentucky or Liberty, but they can beat up on some of the other weaker teams, Jacksonville State, Florida International, Kennesaw State, now the FBS level. So a lot of opportunities for some wins there, and would love nothing more than to see this team finish with at least a 500 record, if not a winning record. So, yeah, my thoughts on that game, I was stunned, a little angry at first, and then I got over it and was happy to see them get the win. 20 points, right? Like 34-14. So really just a complete domination. So looking forward to talking more. And we'll have to have you on the show, man. If Sam Houston continues this success this year, maybe kind of becomes a surprise team in the Conference USA, or even just starts flirting with a bowl bid, we'll get you on here. We'll have to talk some Bearcat football, man, for sure. But appreciate the comment. Happy to have you here. Good to hear from you. I'll reach out soon. I'll have to shoot you a message and we'll reconnect. I think I still owe you a drink, right? At some point next time I'm down in Texas. So I got to hook you up with that. With that, guys, I'll tell you what. We'll call tonight. We'll call tonight. We starting to lose my voice a little bit. Can you believe that? I got to get back into the live stream routine. We will dive deeper into Texas and Michigan and Tennessee and NC State and Colorado, Nebraska for that matter, all beginning tomorrow. Tomorrow at 1, we have Texas and Michigan, our official prediction for that game. Tomorrow at 6 Central Time, of course, Colorado, Nebraska. Friday morning, Tennessee, NC State. And then boom, we have started week 2 of college football. Begins Friday night. Saturday going to be a massive, massive, massive day. Tons of big-time games. And we'll be right back here on Sunday with our week 2 recap to recap everything that happens. It's going to be a wild week. We're going to see a lot of big-time upsets. And remember what we've been saying all night. Judge a team more off of what they do in week 2 than what you saw in week 1. Week 2 will be very telling. Week 2 will give us a lot of answers. It will answer a lot of questions and concerns that we may have had from week 1. Remember that. Remember that as you are watching this weekend. But again, last little bit, big time thank you to Chris Gates, his online fitness training camp. The link for that down in the description below. 80% off. 80% off if you use our promo code Gridiron. Do not miss out on that, guys. Go check it out. The link down in the description below. along with our expert picks. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the country are week 2 picks and week 1 NFL picks. NFL starts tomorrow, by the way. Chiefs and Ravens tomorrow night. All those picks are up on our website and also were sent out through our betting newsletter if you were signed up for the expert picks. So never too late to sign up, never too early to sign up. Go sign up today. Take advantage of it. Win big with us. Become a member of our GE Nation and help us get one step closer to that 24-hour live stream, as you've seen across the ticker down there. 100 signups, 24-hour live stream, expert picks. Go take advantage of it. Go take advantage of it right now. We want you to be a part of it. So, guys, as always, we appreciate you. We appreciate all your support. Noah, for sure, will be reaching out to you here soon. No doubt about it. Good to see you guys again. All of you, great to see you. Noah, Trey, Golden Sharks, Doggy, Sarah, Clement, Scotty B, my man Christian. Who else we got? My man Jerry. Congratulations once again. So good to hear from you. All of our super chat donors and Louise. Call-in show next week, Louise. We got you. Mitch, Trey, we appreciate every single one of you that stopped by. First live stream of the year. Many more to come. Again, next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Mark it on your calendar. Don't miss out. We'll be here every single week talking college football with you. But until next time, have a great night. Have a great college football weekend. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert. Good night, everybody.